Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Red Horse Knifeworks Hellraiser P. This is available right now. I'm going to link it right down in the description, and this might surprise you because it surprised me. I never knew this. This knife is made in the United States. It's not a new design. It's the Hellraiser has actually been around for a long time. I remember seeing a review of the original custom on Jim Skelton's channel. I knew that they had done a production variant, which I think is what the P stands for, but I just automatically assumed that this was done by Bestech or We or somebody. But no, these are done in the United States, which I think is really neat. So I will link these guys down below. This version in the blue and black marble carbon fiber is a little more expensive. They have less expensive versions in G10, so feel free to check that out if you'd like to. I want to thank right here, My Nightly EDC on Instagram for sending this in for review. Please give him a follow. It's because of people like him that I'm able to bring you guys daily knife content. It's also because of my generous patrons. Thanks for supporting me. There's a link for Patreon down below. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this guy. Overall length of the Hellraiser P is coming in at 8.6 inches. Overall blade length is coming in at 3.75. Yeah, 3.65. And then your cutting edge is coming in just shy of 3.5, maybe 3.4 inches. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1? You can see here this is not a small, not what I would call a small knife. Fans of the Cold Steel Espada XL will be quick to point out that I don't really know what a big knife is. Anyways, how about up against the Benchmade Griptilianer, in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Benchmade Bug Out. You can see they're bigger than both. Last but not least, the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Once again, larger than both. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. So we'll fold this guy up. Check this out. Here's the action. Completely and totally falls shut. Lots of surprising things with this knife because it looks, I'll point this out right away because people are going to say it. It looks gas station-y. There's a lot of surprises here. Bear with me. It's full of surprises. Thickness, it's a little bit thicker than the Spyderco Para 3. Not crazy, but it is thicker. How about length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3? You can see here, body-wise, it's maybe a hair longer than the PM2. It's definitely longer than the Para 3. Maximum height's definitely this area down here, and it still isn't quite as tall as that hump in the PM2 or Para 3, so there you go. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness. I swear, I have got to put a laser light or some sort of neon light on those calipers. God dang. Out of all the tools that I misplace while I'm doing a review, those calipers, most often the ones. Blade stock thickness coming in at 136. It's probably 135 thousandths. Materials, we are looking at, in this case, carbon fiber and S35VN. We are looking at some countersunk steel liners on both sides, which is great. And there is a little bit of milling in there. So weight, I'm going to guess this thing weighs around 5 ounces. That's just a guess. Let's find out. 4.52 ounces. So for those of ratio aficionados, it's not absolutely perfect, but it's pretty normal. It's pretty kind of run-of-the-mill. It's kind of what you expect, right? Athletic shorts probably not going to be your thing. This is probably going to be a jeans knife, more heavy-duty pant material knife, not something you're going to want to be carrying around in fitted khakis or something similar. So there you go. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. Get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the description where it talks about my tools. We have a T8 for the body screws, which is excellent. I love to see that. And there's only 2. How about the pocket clip screws? Are those also T8? Those are also T8. How about the pivot? That is also T8. Magnificent. That's how it should be done. Very, very simple to take this knife apart, and you never have to change the bit out. It's the right size, right head, all that, right? So great. Moving on here. So yeah, this is a pretty striking aesthetic. Now, the cleaver blade thing, like where that was like, and obviously like some people are exclusively into knives that have this type of aesthetic. This takes on a classic, like a very aggressive shaving razor, but it's also a pocket knife, right? That was a trend for a long time, a few years back. And these knives that look like this are still popular for sure. But this sort of has this, it's resonating like 2015 to 2017, I think, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it still has, like, this was one of the knives. The Hellraiser was one of the knives that I think kind of got that all moving. And I'm not saying that this design came out in 2015, because truthfully, I think it came out earlier than that. I want to say 2013, but it's hard to remember everything, as you can imagine, right? But yeah, it still has an aesthetic that a lot of people look at and immediately go, that's the Hellraiser. It's just one of those designs. Once you've seen it once, you never forget what it is, right? They also did the Chopper and the War Pig, I think. I don't know if they still do those or not. But anyways, yeah, this is the aesthetic we're working with. There's plenty of room on the handle to hang on to it. Obviously. There's plenty of room to kind of move around a little bit. If you want to choke up a little bit, you can, right? The most comfortable position to hold it in is actually probably choked up. You can put your index finger in this spot right here where it seems like it's supposed to go, but that pocket clip's kind of digging in my palm a little bit. I find that it's a little more comfortable to do this. Your thumb kind of falls into this valley up here on the blade because of the curvature of the spine, but there is jimping back here. This is not the most comfortable knife to hold, and it's also not going to be the most practical thing for a lot of work. There's a lot of functional aspects here, but obviously the design caters more towards the aesthetic than it does to, you know, true utility. But that's not to say that blades with heavy curvatures and more of a cleaver style, right? I don't know what we want to call this. It's like a curved cleaver, right? A Hellraiser. Obviously, day-to-day regular stuff, like if your day-to-day is just opening boxes and packages and cutting some rope and doing some this is going to be just fine, right? If you need more of a puncture style blade, or you need something with a more practical blade shape, right, because you're doing something very, very specific with a knife, right, or if you're working outside all day every day with your knife, then this might not be for you. But aesthetics play a gigantic role in the things that we choose in this world. If you're watching this video right now, you know all too well that we as knife enthusiasts find interesting, crazy, weird designs appealing. Even sometimes when we hate them, we're still drawn to it because it's you know, the presence of it is very loud, right? That's what's happening here. That's why people don't forget about this. And if you didn't know about this, you won't forget it now. Definitely. There's plenty of room to engage this liner lock here, and that is, to my knowledge, yeah, steel. Definitely steel. People always like to give me a lesson in magnetism when I do that. I know that there's other elements to consider there, but in the knife world, if a magnet sticks to it, it's steel. If it doesn't, it's something like titanium or aluminum, generally speaking. So yeah. This one is carbon fiber, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, you're going to see that people have already seen it. There are voids, right? And a lot of times people see that, and then they don't, they're like, okay, well, then I'm not going to get that knife because they use carbon fiber with voids in it. This is the nature of marble carbon fiber and shred carbon fiber. Yes, you can definitely get, like, if you're going to buy this knife and you really want this carbon fiber, it's a dice roll. This one has a lot of voids, definitely. On one side, and this is proving my point. On this side, there are almost no voids, almost nothing. There's a little one up here. There's one right here, a little bit, and there's a little one right here. On this side, it's all over the place, right? You could buy this knife and you could get tons of voids on both sides if you want to go with a carbon fiber. You could buy this knife and get no voids on either side, right? You could buy a knife that's twice as expensive, 3 times as expensive, 10 times as expensive as this knife and get the same marble carbon fiber. There's still a chance, a less likely chance as you go up in price, there's still a chance it's going to have voids in it because that's generally the nature of this type of carbon fiber. Fortunately, you don't have to buy one in carbon fiber. You can buy one in G10 and it's actually less expensive and you're not going to have that stuff. So just know, it's not like just this knife has an issue with voids. No, it's the type of carbon fiber. It doesn't look very good when there are voids in it. That's the chance you take when you buy something with this type of carbon fiber. I like the little pivot collar that they do, the nice contrast there. It looks good. They did do some nice chamfering all the way around on this, so the edges are nicely knocked down. I love that they crown the spine. That's a nice little surprise. It's always nice to see when they do that. Now, obviously, right, you can't strike a ferro rod off of a rounded spine, or it's going to be much harder. You'd have to do it like up here or something. But not many of us are doing that, so okay. The thumb studs are just about perfect. They're in exactly the right spot to engage and do the, as you can see, the reverse flick is no problem. The thumb flick, same thing. When you drop this knife, it's likely that the first thing to interact with your finger is going to be that part of the blade right there. There is no flipper tab to catch, so when you do that, and this area right here is rounded, so it's likely just going to glide off of your finger. If you can somehow get it to stop right there and then turn it, the action is completely and totally fall shut, and it is very, very smooth. This does run on bearings. There is no pivot lash. There is no detent lash, and the lockup is completely and totally solid. Really, I honestly thought for the longest time, and there's nothing wrong with Bestech. In fact, Bestech, the OEM, the Chinese OEM, has proven that they are, in some situations, nearly as or just as capable as Riot. I was just certain, because that's generally what we see. We see a nice semi-custom or custom design being built by a designer in the United States, and then it's eventually farmed out to a Chinese OEM so that it can become less expensive. And this is the price range it generally ends up in. However, this is manufactured in the United States and has really, really good, like the quality of action and lockup and all that stuff, the finishes and everything. It's really good. It's really, really impressive, and I was just shocked. I mean, the aesthetic is one thing. You're either gonna like it or you're not gonna like it. But I'm always really happy to see, like, no, it's a production knife being made in the United States. We don't see that nearly as often now, so I like that. What are these holes up here for, right? Are they tactical holes? Are they speed holes? Are they drainage holes? I saw a Frost Cutlery ad one time that was desperately trying to convince the reader that the holes in the blade were for drainage. Drainage? I lift my knife up directly out of the water like this. All the water just drains, right? It's great. Super convenient. No, I think it's just an aesthetic thing. I see no other purpose for that. Had they removed them, would the knife look better? I don't know. Some people might think that it would. It's just a character trait of this knife. When I see this knife or when I think Hellraiser, I imagine those holes. I have ever since I saw it for the first time. I don't have a problem with it. There's a flat that runs out about 85% the length of the blade, giving it a reasonable amount of room to drop down towards a decently, it's like normal thickness, right? This isn't like thick or it isn't thin behind the edge, but it'll do the job, right? Your slicing tasks, it's definitely going to do that, right? People who do a lot of skinning, maybe this is a blade that would excel at that. Maybe like specifically people who skin would look at this and say that would be excellent. Maybe it would. I have no idea. I don't do that, right? For the vast majority of us, using our knives for just regular stuff, it'll do an okay job. You don't have much of a tip, right? But that's true of any blade that is shaped similarly. Any reverse tanto blade, this is a pretty aggressive reverse tanto, we're going to call it that, right? Or it's not a Wharncliffe, right? It's not really a sheep's foot either, but that's just what you're working with here. On the flip side, it is going to be plenty durable because there's lots of material out here. This is also S35VN, which is definitely on the tougher side for stainless steels. Not the toughest, but it's on the tougher side. S35VN is still an excellent composition in today's world, though we have seen it start to pop up on knives that cost under $150 or under $100 in some cases, right? So people think that it's no longer a super steel. It's definitely still a super steel. It's just been kind of replaced at a higher price point by steels like S45VN or other things. But truthfully, the performance of S35VN versus S45VN is so impossible to measure on if we're talking about regular day-to-day stuff, right? It's almost trivial. But would I have liked to have seen 20 CV on this? Yeah, I think so, just for the sake of feeling like you get that value. Of course, 20 CV, it does hold an edge longer, but that doesn't mean that it's universally considered to be a better steel than S35V. And remember, edge retention is not the end-all, be-all when it comes to quality, right? You got to judge these things on an individual basis. What are you going to be using it for? 20 CV has fantastic edge retention to corrosion resistance. The ratio between corrosion resistance and edge retention is excellent. It's not tough. People claim all the time, they're like, I thought M390 was super tough. No, it's not tough. It has a lot of edge retention, but it is not a tough steel. It's also going to be much harder to sharpen. S35VN, much tougher than M390, much easier to sharpen, decent edge retention, and it's also still stainless, not quite as stainless as 20CV. So you have to ask yourself, which of those attribute balances works better for me? Value-wise, though, yeah, I'll admit, 20CV it's a more expensive steel. It's generally considered a more premium steel, right? Take that for what it's worth. It would have been nice to see 20CV on this. Outside of that, the blade looks good. I kind of wish it was tumbled. Why? Because I am sick of satin finishes. But the satin finish they did here looks good, and the cutting bevel looks excellent. I mean, that's even. We don't have like big, I'm trying to get the light to reflect off of it. We don't have areas where, what's going on here? Camera. We don't have areas where the bevel is uneven. On both sides, the final cutting bevel looks really, really good. So I like that. The whole blade all the way around looks great. What else to talk about on this side? Not really anything. Oh no, where's the lanyard hole? Oh, where am I going to put my lanyard? There's no lanyard hole and I don't care. There's a couple of standoffs back here. I think they look just fine. The pocket clip, it's got holes in it, so it looks like it's going right along with the knife. It also kind of looks like an afterthought, and there's a huge bill on it. It does have a continuous rise, so in and out of the pocket is easy. I think, is this titanium? Yeah, okay, the clip is titanium though, so that's nice. And it's a little bit darkened. That's kind of weird. I think they should match it to the blade. I think that they could have matched the blade to this. It looks bead blasted. They could have done that or made the clip and the blade tumbled, and I would have preferred that. So we have a satin to dark bead blast contrast. It's fine. It's not really that. I'm just being nitpicky. There is no mounting position for left-handed carry. It is just right-handed, but they have countersunk the pocket clip into the scales, which is good. It means it's not going to wiggle. You have quite a bit of knife sticking up out of your pocket. I really wish it was a little bit deeper, but it's not. It's not necessarily shallow carry. It's just because there's a lot of knife that's in your pocket. It is what it is, right? Lockup, as I stated, completely and totally solid. Here's the stop pin back here. Can we see it? The camera just not wanting to focus today. There is some shouldering. In fact, quite a bit of shouldering, so that's nice. We are engaging at, 65%, something like that. No blade play, no lock rock, no movement whatsoever, and no lock stick. Very good. The geometry also looks good. We are fully engaging that tang, and it looks nice. Like I said, the action is truly smooth, and we are centered, which is always good to see. This is not a knife where they were like, let's try to make the most practical look. If you want that, there you go. Knives that look like this, or every other thing that Civivi makes, right? Something like this, right? This is meant to draw the attention of people who want something with a little bit more spice, right? And I can appreciate that. If they're gonna do that, here's the thing. This is what separates this knife from a gas station knife. A gas station knife just looks crazy and they put dragons and wizards and crap all over it, usually fire. Sometimes I'll see things like dice that are on fire, or a skull that's like breathing fire and there's dice that are coming out of it. Maybe there's like a angry murder clown. What is the deal with that? Can someone explain that to me? What is appealing about the death, fire, murder clown skull, dice and dragons and what? There's no universe where all of those things naturally are together. That is just bizarre to me. But for whatever reason, those are the types of knives that sell at a gas station, right? The thing that separates a gas station knife from this is that this is actually made well. This is actually made with real tolerances in a way that, you know, it might not be the most practical design, but it is fairly comfortable to hold. It's easy to engage and disengage. It's made with premium materials, right? If you like some of that stuff, but you want something that is an actual tool and not a toy, right? Because those are toys. Dangerous toys, actually. This will work for you. But just on the basis of practicality, like this just isn't it will work. It will work, right? But there are so many other designs that are just more practical, right? The blade can still have the curvature that you need, right? If you need this heavy curvature, but will also have a more reasonable tip. this is hard to say because it's like I'm wondering if the driving force behind what I'm saying is the fact that the aesthetic is so different. There are plenty of, practical applications for this knife, and there is enough design sense being implemented here that you could easily EDC this knife and have it work for just about anything that you would need it to be used for, right? Me personally, I would want less aggressiveness down here. I don't need, from a practical standpoint, there's too much aesthetic and, going on here, but it will still work, right? It's going to work just fine for a lot of people. I still think that there are more practical designs, definitely, at this price point. So the main thing here is that the aesthetic itself is going to be the biggest deciding factor for most people, right? We can argue all day about how practical or not practical this blade shape is, right? We can do that all day. But if we're being honest with ourselves, it's either going to be a yes or a no on the aesthetics, right? So it's really cool. I think the main thing for me is I want the blade steel to be something different, and I think the price is a bit high. So we're looking at $230 for G10 and $270 for this. Now, this is an American-made knife, right? And that's still pretty impressive pricing, considering that a lot of Chinese OEMs, for whatever reason, just firmly believe that their knives belong in the $200 to $300 range, right? It's not that I want this knife to cost less money. I want it to be in 20CV or S45VN now, but this knife has been around for a while. It's been available since S35VN was much more accepted at this price point on this tier of knife, right? We have to understand that this is a production level, right? In the same sense that ProTech USA made knives are production at this tier. ZT knives are USA made production at this tier, right? So, yeah, perhaps if we had a titanium liner lock and we had 20 CV, that $270 price tag for the marble carbon fiber or the $230 price tag for the G10 would make a little bit more sense. But it's a bit high. It's not crazy. It's not outlandish. It's just a bit high. There's too many elements here for me to yell from the top of a mountain, rush out and buy this. But it is cool. I'll tell you this. If you like the aesthetic, if you've looked at this and you've made your choice, you're like, I love the aesthetic. I think it's wicked cool. I just want to know if it's a good quality item, if it's made well. Yeah, it is. And not just false shut action. Again, the lockup, and there's no wiggle in the detent in the closed position. There's no pivot lash, right? There's no lockup issues or anything like that. Yeah, they really did this well. So, not something I'm going to put on my most recommended knives playlist, but those are the types of things you need to make your choice on. As far as quality goes and execution, it was done well, right? I would not go with the carbon fiber. I generally me personally, at this price point, I try to stay away from marble and shred carbon fiber because I know that there's a good chance there's going to be voids in it, right? So, if you love how this looks, I would recommend the G10 version, but very surprised, pleasantly surprised by the US thing and the fact that it is really there's a lot of polishing and really some nice elements here. This is really cool. So there you go. Do with that review what you will. I will link it down below for those of you who want to check it out. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.